All right, everybody. Very warm welcome. The highest in me. Bows to the highest in you. Let's begin with a moment of silence. Today's practice is going to be about what entangles us and what frees us, what binds us and what liberates us, what creates stress and what dissolves stress. And I'd like you to come to this in a spirit of inquiry, a spirit of questioning, a spirit of wonder, willingness to look at things afresh. Even if there's something that you think you know, I'd like you to question, do I really know this? What do I really know? Or is it just an idea? How deep does this understanding go? Last night, before I fell asleep, for some reason, I began getting all kinds of scary images in my mind. And it's not like I'd seen some scary show on TV or something. In fact, I hadn't watched any TV. But all kinds of really scary images, almost like, I don't know what to say, like very strange figures appearing in my mind. And yet there was not any fear whatsoever. I just found it very fascinating. All these scary images, scary people, not even people, some kind of strange beings. Could almost say like some kind of demons. And the whole time I was just finding it fascinating because I knew it was all a projection of my mind. This is my mind creating stuff for some reason. It sounded very fascinating. Oh yeah, these are the kind of images that I was thinking if I was a good artist, I would have liked to paint some of those images. Quite scary, quite strange looking, but quite powerful. And then I thought, it's good that I know this is a projection of my mind. Because if I didn't know that, I would be very scared. I thought, oh my God, there's some bad energy in this room. Or someone is trying to do some black magic on me. Or there's some ghost here. Or what does it mean? So there was a hint there. There's a hint there that when I know it's a projection, when I know it's a reflection in consciousness, when I know it's dreamlike, when I know it's insubstantial, nothing really there, then it doesn't bother me. But when I think it's real, when I think it's going to affect me, when I think it matters, when I spin a story around it and I forget that it's a story, then there's stress. Then there's stress. So for whatever reason, that imagery did not scare me, did not trouble me. There's a nice Tibetan word, shenpa. There was no shenpa. There was no stickiness. Could see it very clearly for what it was. Reflections and consciousness. Mind projected stuff. Nothing there. Empty. There's a story of this Zen master, and he had a special method of checking if someone is awakened or not, enlightened or not. He had a bird, and this bird could sense your ego. So the moment it sensed that you're in an egoic state, it would start chirping very loudly. So one of his students um, began to show very promising signs, and everyone was like, master, he's very special. He's he's had some kind of deep awakening. So after many months of everyone saying that, you should really check, you should really check. So master's all right, we'll check. So he calls a student and he says, my bird is in a small cage. You have to keep this little cage on your head. And you have to walk around town and come back. Let's see if the bird chirps or not. The student said, all right. And this master had created, he had hired people to create various kinds of obstacles. So somebody would shout at him for no reason. Somebody would cut him off. Some very beautiful woman would admire how handsome he is. So all these obstacles were there. But the student very calmly walked through everything. The bird didn't chirp even once. And after taking that big circuit of the city, he comes back. The master's beaming with pride. It's like amazing, amazing. You truly are the best student I've ever had. And right away, the bird began chirping. Yeah. So he was very good. He didn't get caught in most of the things. But the last little thing, he got caught. Yeah. So this is shenpa and this is rigpa. What is shenpa? Shenpa is stickiness. When something is sticky, there's a kind of a fixation there. Something happens, you can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop worrying about it. You can't stop wondering about it. You can't stop. When you can't stop, that's fixation. That's shenpa. The enlightened one has no ego at all. There are no enlightened people. There are only enlightened moments. Actually, there are no people. We were saying in our last session, that which arises and passes is a symbol. That which arises and passes is a symbol. At this scale, we appear like humans. But zoom in, you appear like a cell. Zoom in, you appear like an atom. Zoom out, you appear like a planet. Zoom out, you appear like a galaxy. So being human is a symbol. So notice in your own life what creates disturbance, and what is settling. What creates burning, and what is cool. And I'm going to propose several things. I want you to check. Don't just believe, don't just agree with me. I'd like you to really check, is there truth to this? Is there truth to this? Wisdom is to see things from many, many, many perspectives. To know one is to know none. This morning I was remembering this beautiful saying by Kabir. दुख में सब सिमरन करें, सुख में करे ना कोई. जो सुख में सिमरन करे, दुख काहे को होए. What does it mean? Dukh is in suffering, in difficult times, when things aren't going the way you expect. Everyone remembers. Remembers what? Remembers God. Remembers what's important. Remembers what's essential. In difficult times, you all remember. You have no choice but to remember. It's too painful. Sukh mein kare na koi. In good times, in pleasant times, then we get lax. It's called ego. What is ego? Edging God out. I've got it. I'll take care of it. I don't need help. Edging God out. So, sukh mein kare na koi. Jo sukh mein simran kare. The one who remembers even in pleasant times, good times, comfortable times. How can such a one suffer? How can such a one suffer? So that's the challenge for us, not only to remember it in difficult times. In difficult times, I mean, when someone is drowning, of course, they do everything they can, you know. But when you're not drowning, when things are calm, that's the time to remember this. To remember what, actually? This is actually a very good question. What are we trying to remember? There's this quote I read. Let me share it with you. Feel what it's like to tune your antenna to the idea of a world out there. Feel what it's like to tune your antenna to the idea of a world out there and watch what it does to your mind and your attention. Watch where it goes. It feels like it's projecting outward. It's going away from your body. It's going away from your center. It's going away from your consciousness. And is producing the sense of a real world out there. Every time you think about a world out there, or what you call the real world, every time you think about the facts, every time you consider the conditions that are around you, every time you think about what's on the news, or what's happening on Facebook, or what your friends said about you, every time you reference the outer world, every time you reference the outer world, watch what it does to your frequency. It lowers your vibration. Your attention literally exits your sense of self, and it produces the sense of a real world around you with great tension stress, and a mistaken feeling of responsibility for particular outcomes in that world that you are personally attaching yourself to. Watch for that. And then pull your attention back to the center of I am. Go back within. Close off your senses for a moment. Stop the senses. Withdraw from the senses. Watch for that, and then pull your attention back to the center of I am. Go back within. Close off your senses for a moment. Stop the senses. Withdraw from the senses. Draw your attention back to beingness, I amness, and relax into the knowing of who you truly are. Then there's no other way but for the expansion to occur. Go back to that place of faith where you know somehow your desires are already fulfilled. What you truly want is already here for you. And then watch what happens to your frequency. Notice the distinction between referencing the world and the facts of what is versus ignoring that and staying in the vibrational domain, that subtler domain of your freed up imagination, connected to your natural awareness, confident in your future presence, having faith in your destiny and what you know to ultimately be true. Stay rooted in what you know you really are. Beyond illusions, beyond the veils, beyond people's opinions, beyond even your own opinions. Connect to that higher truth. So what he's saying is that remembrance is this. Remembrance is a remembering of your I am. Instead of getting lost in the dream and imagining the dream is real, you pull your attention back to the center. You go back within yourself. One of my friends was telling me recently, she attended a workshop by Joe Dispenza, and he has something he calls the nothing box. He says, enter the nothing box. It's a nice way of putting it. What is the nothing box? Shut everything out. Enter the nothing box. Close off your senses. Stop your senses. Of course, you can't, but in a way you can. You just stop giving energy to your senses, believing everything your senses are saying. Enter the nothing box. Withdraw from the senses. It's like deep down you're saying, I'm just not interested. I'm just not interested. Mind, I'm just not interested. Senses, I'm just not interested. And you draw your attention back to beingness, I amness, and relax into the knowing of who you truly are. Now expansion has to occur. Touch that place where you know somehow your desires are already fulfilled. What you want deep down, truly, is already available to you. Now watch what happens to your frequency. So from this perspective, Simran or remembering is noticing what happens when you project outwards, go away from your body, away from your center, away from your consciousness. And you imagine there's a real world out there. Notice the tension, the stress, and the mistaken feeling of responsibility that comes. And then remember to come home. Come home to I am. It's also called being aware of being aware. Know that knowing is happening. Notice that noticing is happening. It's like you're defocusing from the images on the television and recognizing that, oh, there's light. There's light. You're defocusing from the content. And you're recognizing, oh, there's consciousness. There's consciousness. Byron Katie calls this. She said, are you a lover of reality or are you a lover of fantasy? Lover of reality is a lover of what is. Lover of fantasy is a lover of what should be, could be, would be. And the stickiness around that. But don't even be afraid of the stickiness. Of course, there's stickiness. You have stickiness, I have stickiness. Don't be in resistance to that. Oh, stickiness is like this. This is what it's like to be sticky. This is what shenpa is like. The powerful question is, who are you without that story? Who are you without that thought? And it's similar to going into the nothing box. Just not interested. And we can all do this at least for 2 seconds. Maybe it'll come back. But those 2 seconds will show you, oh, it's not like I'm stuck to this. I don't have to be. I don't have to suffer, actually. I choose to suffer. All right, that's good to know. I'm choosing to suffer. So Lester Levinson says, could you let it go? Just could you? And you say yes or no. And then he says, would you let it go? Just would you? And you say yes or no. And then he says, when? And you say now or later. But at least you recognized, I'm the one who's holding on. Or whatever, the holding on is holding on. That's a more impersonal way of saying it. The holding on is holding on. Your hands can't help but being hands. Your legs can't help but being legs. Your tongue can't help but being a tongue. Your brain can't help but being a brain. Your hair can't help but being hair. You can't help but be you. This world can't help but be itself. This whole universe, this whole existence cannot help but be itself. Just see that for a moment. Can you allow yourself a single moment without trying to tinker with it, tamper with it? A single moment without resistance. Is that available to you? Your past can't help but being your past. Your future can't help but being your future. Your destiny can't help but being your destiny. Your present can't help but being your present. Can you allow yourself a single moment of non interference, non tinkering, non tampering? Don't be an influencer. One of my favorite teachings is that right where there is stress, right there is the ending of stress. Not even an inch away, not even a millimeter away. Right where there is burning, right there is the ending of burning. I'm going to ask you, does fire burn itself? Does fire burn itself? Does water wet itself? How fascinating. Fire is burning everything, but does fire burn itself? Water is saturating everything, wetting everything. But does water wet itself? Only in only in relationship to something else those things happen. But by itself, it just is. There's a riddle I often reference of imagining that you're in a prison and there are no doors and no windows and you don't have any tools. How are you going to get out of it? And some people really struggle. How am I going to get out of it? There are no tools. It's thick walls in all directions. How am I going to get out of it? And then I remind them, I said, imagine. Oh, yeah, imagine. There is no prison. I just imagined it. So now apply that to your life. You're trying to figure things out. How do we pay off this debt? How do we deal with this child who's so confused, who's so, self-conscious? And how do we deal with this unfulfilling work that we're into? They say there are three perennial topics. If any of you are ever low on money, then you should start talking about these three topics. Tell people how to be healthy, you'll always have an audience. Tell people how to improve their relationships, you'll always have an audience. And tell people how to make money, you'll always have an audience. Because these are three perennial things everyone's always thinking about. How do I lose weight? How do I get healthy? Those are three examples, right? For most people, it's one of those three things, or all of those three things. Always wondering about that. But suppose whatever your personal version of that is, where you keep trying to solve something. What fill in the blanks? How do I use my time better? Or how do I be more disciplined? Or how do I be more calm? How do I worry less? Or how do I sleep better? Whatever your version of that is. And it's just like that puzzle. So how are you going to solve this puzzle? And Nisargadatta Maharaj says, nothing can trouble you but your imagination. So your life is not troubling you. Your imagination about your life is troubling. Enter the nothing box. What's the nothing box? Just lose interest in what your mind has to say. Lose interest in what your senses are telling you. For once in your life, we've been taught to be responsible. For once in your life, don't be responsible. Don't respond, actually. Don't react, don't respond. We've been taught to fulfill our duties. For once in a life, drop all your duties. Don't answer the doorbell. Don't reply to that message. Come here. And feel the burning. Right where there is burning, right there is the ending of burning. Do you feel the burning? Friction in your being. Always a little bit there. Feel the burning. and stop imagining. The answer to the riddle is stop imagining. Stop fixating. Stop obsessing. Notice that the only meaning anything has is what you give it. There's absolutely no meaning beyond that. It just is. It just is. Right where there is stress, right there, not even a millimeter away, right there is the ending of stress. Please check if this is true or if it's a lie. You need to check. Don't believe me. Does fire burn itself? Does water wet itself? Alan Watts says that just like an apple tree apples, the world peoples. The apple tree apples and this world peoples. Just the fruit. We are still the world, like the apple is still part of the apple tree. The apple tree appled and the world peopled. And the only problem is you're imagining that you're somehow separate from all of this. You're imagining that you've got to figure something out, that you've got to be somehow different from what you are. The great way is not difficult for one who has no preferences. The great way is not difficult for one who has no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything is clear and undisguised. Make the slightest distinction, however, heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. From this perspective, the only thing that's required is to stop cherishing opinions. Nothing else. You don't have to find the truth. Just stop cherishing opinions. Opinions are what delude you, distract you, hypnotize you. Put one part of you against another part of you. This against that. This better than that. This more than that. That more than this. And now we're struggling again. This is such a powerful inquiry. And I want to propose to you that this entire mechanism of life has no friction. And the friction that you are experiencing is precisely engineered, precisely designed for you to wake up to that reality of no friction. I'm going to say it again. This entire mechanism of life, this entire dream of life has no friction. This entire movie has no friction, no burning. And the friction that you may be experiencing, I may be experiencing, we may be experiencing, is precisely designed, precisely calibrated for us to wake up to this reality of no friction. For that, you have to welcome this friction. If you say, no, 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 God, take it away, take it away, take away this pain, take away this emotional pain, this physical pain, this mental pain, this relationship pain, this pain of having no purpose, no meaning, no job, no money. Take that away, take that away. Then you're missing the point. It's precisely calibrated. It's designed so you understand the mistake. The mistake of fixating, the mistake of resisting, the mistake of believing you're thinking, the mistake of imagining that there's life and there's you, the mistake of thinking you have a life instead of recognizing there's just life. The mistake of imagining you're the doer, you're the thinker. This universe is a self-simulation. It has simulated itself. And the purpose of the simulation is to recognize that it's a simulation. So those parts of you that you resist, that you can't get yourself to accept, you sincerely tell those parts, you stay forever. You never change. You stay till the end of time. You stay forever. You never change. You stay till the end of time. And I mean it. At least for a micro moment, there was no resistance. There was no resistance. There was no insistence. And you got a taste of freedom. Could you welcome this? Lester Levinson asks you, could you welcome this? Would you welcome this? When? Could you allow this? Would you allow this? When? Could you embrace this? Would you embrace this? When? When? When is that auspicious occasion? When will the stars align? I'd like us all to recognize that only we are holding ourselves back. Nobody in this world is holding anything back from you. Only you are holding yourself back. Somewhere you don't feel ready, you don't feel worthy, you feel hesitant. In other words, there's shenpa, there's stickiness. I heard this story years back, which affected me. This boy was being beaten by his parents, and being abused, physically, emotionally abused, going on for quite a while. And the neighbors began to suspect something's not right. This child is looking bruised and scarred, looking very scared. So they called the child services, social services. So people came to check. And yeah, they found this boy is being abused, little boy being beaten up. So they tell the parents, sorry, we can't allow this child to be with you. You're taking the child away. And one would imagine the child would be so relieved. Wow, I'm freed from this prison. I'm freed from this fate. But the child fought and screamed, don't take me away, don't take me away, don't take me away. He was crying and howling, don't take me away. The true story. Because the known, the familiar, is still better than the unknown. Our deepest fear is the unknown. So the child, even though he's in kind of in a hellish place, he's getting beaten, scolded, everything, every day. He would rather be there than be taken, because he doesn't know what the fate is. Where are these people going to take me? And that child fought and screamed. It was very difficult to get him out of that house. And that's our situation as well. Even if it's painful, at least I know it. What's on the other side? Even if it's painful, at least it's familiar. So only we are holding ourselves back. No one else is holding us back. I used to wonder, when I used to go to Bodh Gaya and other places, these Tibetan practitioners, monks and nuns, they're up to all kinds of stuff. Huh? They're doing these full prostrations. What's a full prostration? You literally, you lie down, you bow down, you lie down. So either in the same place, they have a wooden plank, they go and they bow down again, like something like a Surya Namaskar, but a little gentler than that. And you basically bow down. क्या कहते हैं? Ashtang Namaskar. You bow down for it, then you get up again. And they're doing it again and again for hours. And some of them are going all around the Mahabodhi temple. They're going around, they stand up, they take 1 or 2 steps, and they again bow down. So one body length at a time, they're circumambulating. And I asked someone, what is this about? They said the teacher has told them to do X number of these, so maybe 100,000 of these. And then usually there's also a mantra to be done several million times. And there are other things, there are offerings to be made several thousand or hundreds of thousands of times. And I said, what is this about? They said it's a preliminary practice. Before they can receive the teaching, it's a preliminary practice. And it takes them anywhere from 2 to 5 years to complete. So until you do so many mantras and so many prostrations and so many offerings, you don't even get the teachings. I was thinking in today's world, it just takes a simple internet search to get the teachings. It's not that difficult. You can buy a book. But it's not going to do it. You know what's happening? You know what's happening in those 2 to 5 years. You're feeling worthy. I've earned it. I deserve it. That's all that's happening. Otherwise, you can get the teaching through the internet. You can get the teaching through a book. But all that's happening in those 2 to 5 years is you start feeling I'm worthy. Otherwise, you thought, I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. After bowing down so many times, after making offerings so many times, after doing the mantra so many times, something deep inside of you says, okay, I deserve this. In other words, I'm willing to allow myself a taste of this. So we're only holding it back from ourselves. Nobody else is holding it back from us. So you have to grant to yourself. You have to say, I allow myself peace. I allow myself happiness for no reason. I allow myself to experience this world through the eyes of God, through the eyes of love, through the eyes of compassion. I allow myself that experience, that non-experience. I grant myself that moment of peace. I grant myself that moment of stillness. There's an ancient Chinese proverb. Grant yourself a moment of peace, and you will understand how foolishly you have scurried about. Grant yourself a moment of peace, and you will understand how foolishly you have scurried about. Learn to be silent. And you will notice that you have talked too much. Be kind, and you will realize that your judgment of others was too severe. Grant yourself a moment of peace, and you will understand how foolishly you have scurried about. Learn to be silent. And you will notice that you have talked too much. Be kind. Be kind. And you will realize that your judgment of others was too severe. So one more time, I'll read the quote I read a little earlier. And just feel what happens when you hear this. Feel what it's like to tune your antenna to the idea of a world out there. And watch what it does to your mind and your attention. Watch where it goes. It feels like it's projecting outward. It's going away from your body. It's going away from your center. It's going away from consciousness. And it's producing the sense of a real world out there. Every time you think about a world out there, or what you call the real world, every time you think about the facts, every time you consider the conditions that are around you, every time you think about what's on the news, or what's happening on Facebook, or what your friend said about you, every time you reference the outer world, watch what it does to your frequency. It lowers your vibration. I'm going to say it only lowers your vibration when you forget, isn't it? When you're present with it, when you're open to it, when you're not fighting it, not judging it, when you're seeing it as God in clever disguise, love in clever disguise, a blessing in clever disguise. In that moment, it's not lowering your vibration. Your attention literally exits your sense of self, and it produces the illusion of a real world around you. And with that comes great tension, great stress, and a mistaken feeling of responsibility for particular outcomes in that imaginary world that you are personally attaching yourself to. Watch for that. And now bring your attention back to the center. I am. I am. This is an I am. Go back within. Close off your senses for a moment. Stop your senses. Withdraw from the senses. Enter the nothing box. For some of you, you have to enter the nothing box inside the nothing box. In this beingness, I amness, there is a relaxing into who you truly are. Now expansion has to occur. The knowing that somehow your desires are already fulfilled. The knowing that what you really want is already here. Watch what happens to your frequency. Stay rooted in what you really are, beyond illusions, beyond opinions, even your own opinions. Connect to that truth. So, in today's practice, we looked at what entangles us and what disentangles us, what binds us and what frees us, what burdens us and what unburdens us, what creates stress and suffering, and what dissolves and resolves stress and suffering. More than a specific teaching, it's an invitation to inquire, an invitation to check, an invitation to look. And in that very looking, that very seeing, some kind of intelligence is activated. It's beyond thoughts, it's beyond words. Some of you will have a hard time explaining what's happening. You can't explain it. That's all right. You don't have to explain it. Most of the mechanism of life, in any case, is beyond explanation. Seeing is just happening, tasting is just happening. It's just happening. You don't have to explain anything. But this process has begun to give each one of us a taste of what is this mechanism. The Buddha calls it Dukkha Chakra and Dhamma Chakra. Dukkha Chakra is the wheel of suffering. Certain ways of orienting yourself just create more and more and more suffering. I like to call it a ball of glue. You roll a ball of glue on the ground, what does it do? It picks up all the dust, all the dirt, all the grime. And the more you roll the ball, the bigger it gets because it keeps collecting stuff. That's one way to go through life. And those of you who say it's so difficult, so much has happened in my life, so much is still happening, and I don't know if I can take it anymore, then you're in the ball of glue mode. You're in the Dukkha Chakra mode. And the Buddha also says there's Dhamma Chakra, the wheel of truth. And I call that the ball of wool. What's a ball of wool? When a cat chases a ball of wool, what happens? It keeps getting smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller. And the cat keeps chasing, keeps playing with the ball of wool. And then suddenly the cat jumps back. It's very, very surprised. What just happened? The ball disappeared. There was no ball. It was just wool. It was just wool. So what we are sharing here is the perspective of the ball of wool. Right? So what's happening in your life is not burdening you, is not limiting you. It is if you think it is. Otherwise, it's not here to confine you or define you. It's here to refine you. It's not here to confine you. It's not here to define you. It's just here to refine you. And what's hidden inside refine? Fine. Everything is fine. All is well. So that's the truth the Buddha discovered. And that's the truth the three idiots discovered in that movie. All is well. All is well. So grant yourself a moment of peace. Learn to be silent and be kind. Wonderful.